As the year comes to an end, there's been a lot of discussions online about who's had the best year in UFC recently between Jorge Masvidal and Israel Adesanya. Now, my opinion on this is basically in terms of is um, Jorge's actual BMF title. I don't actually consider it a real title. Dana White himself has actually said on multiple occasions that it's actually a one-time belt that was just made for that event between Nate Diaz and Masvidal, um, because of that one event. Basically, is the reason why that belt was actually created. But to actually call it a legit belt, it has to actually have like a ranking system in place, almost like how the normal UFC middleweight title has a ranking system in place, or the UFC title has a ranking system in place. So, in terms of the legitimacy of that particular belt, it's a good gimmick, but I think it's got less legitimacy in terms of being a real belt than the actual interim UFC title belt, because you actually have to go through like a ranking system to actually attain that particular belt. That BMF title, I don't consider it a real belt, but if you look at both of them in terms of their actual resume, obviously Israel Adesanya does have a legitimate belt. He has the UFC middleweight title, which he won this year off Robert Whittaker, and he obviously had the interim belt, which he actually won as well. So in terms of like legitimacy, in terms of a belt, you have to give it to Israel Adesanya because he did actually win a legit title in the UFC. But in my opinion, in terms of like their resume, I think it's no question that this is Masvidal's year. Masvidal obviously managed to beat Darren Till. He beat Ben Askren. He also beat who is that? Nate Diaz. All three of them. Obviously, Darren Till was a very good fighter at that point. I don't know if he was undefeated. I think he may have had one loss. Ben Askren was undefeated, and he effectively finished his career because after he lost to Maya, he just hanged it up. And obviously with Nate Diaz has been in the sport for a long time. As he's a legit elite fighter who's beaten a lot of good fighters. So obviously Masvidal's got a very strong case for actually being fighter of the year for me, in my opinion. In terms of Israel Adesanya, he obviously beat Gastelum, which was a very tough fight. He actually got hurt in that fight. He got hit a few times in that fight by Gastelum. He obviously beat the legend Anderson Silva, but Anderson Silva, in my opinion, was actually out of his obviously very much out of his prime. He was a legend, but he was nowhere near as good as he once was. And on top of that, obviously he won the title off Robert Whittaker. But if you look at it in terms of Masvidal's level of opposition, obviously Darren Till was much bigger, and he was almost like an undefeated fighter. I think he had only one loss at that point, and obviously Ben Askren had a lot of hype going into that particular fight. He was undefeated. I think he was like more than 10 fights deep, undefeated. So in my opinion, Masvidal definitely takes the title for being the best fighter. This has just been his year. In terms of going forward, you have to say both of them have got a lot of good options for next year. I think 2020 is going to be a very good year for both of them. Israel Adesanya is obviously going to have a fight against Yoel Romero in March 7th, which is going to be a very good fight. And obviously, Jorge Masvidal has got loads of options. He could fight Colby, he could fight Usman, he could fight McGregor. He's in a very stacked division. He might potentially. There's been talks about him getting a fight with Nick Diaz, the brother of Nate Diaz. So in my opinion, this has been a year for Masvidal. I think this has been like obviously one of the best years of his career, but this is a year where he's actually come off the table in terms of making it. Obviously this guy's been fighting for the last 16 years, and it feels good to see fighters like Nate Diaz and Masvidal get a pay-per-view because they've been doing this thing for so long. But I think in terms of like whose year it is, I have to actually give it to Masvidal just based on the level of opposition that he's beat, not based on his actual title, the BMF title, because I don't think that's a legitimate title in my opinion. Unless there's a ranking system that's been put in place for it, I don't consider it a real title. But a lot of people do say like I've seen Conor McGregor mention that he wants to take the BMF title. I've seen loads of people mention it, but I don't know if I consider it a real title. And obviously Dana White himself said it was a standalone event that they created that particular title for. Until it's got like a real sanctioning body and it's got rankings, then I don't really consider it a title. So in terms of a title contention, you can make an argument for Israel Adesanya, but in my opinion, in terms of a opposition beat, you have to give it to Jorge Masvidal. I think this has definitely been his year. So tell me what you think below. In my opinion, this has been a very good year for MMA, and also you need to take into take into factor that Masvidal actually stopped Darren Till, and he also stopped Ben Askren, and obviously the Nate Diaz fight got stopped. But even if it didn't get stopped, I don't think what I don't think Nate Diaz was going to turn that fight around. A lot of people say that his cardio comes on in the last 2 rounds, but I just feel like Masvidal was on such a high lead that he wasn't going to lose that particular fight. So, in my opinion, this has definitely been the year of game bred Masvidal. I think he's the one who could legitimately say that 2019 was his year, and he should be the fight of the year for the UFC. Tell me what you think below. Obviously, there's other names that I haven't mentioned. You can make a case for Usman. Obviously, he's beaten Colby. And you can make a case for Amanda Nunes as well. She's been so dominant. Obviously, with her resume, it's actually crazy. So you can really make a case for her. But in my mind, I've just been focusing on the men for this particular video. And in my opinion, out of all of them, Masvidal takes the title for obviously the baddest man, that BMF title, but obviously for being the best fighter in the UFC for this particular year. And obviously, he's got a lot of good fights coming his way. He's got the Conor McGregor fight. He's got the potential Usman fight. He's got a fight against potentially Nick Diaz. And obviously, there's other fights on the table for him. He's riding a high right now. So in my opinion, Masvidal definitely takes the title. Tell me what you think below. And if you disagree with me, tell me why below. And obviously, just subscribe to the channel. Obviously, like this video. So I've got more content coming your way. Peace out.